Whenever you receive a personalized or a handmade gift from somebody, it makes you feel really special. I wanted to make something special for my fiancé. Because we like being outdoors in nature, I used this mold that I had made of tree bark from one of our camping trips, a few other materials to make this customized Rice Krispie treat, and it has a heart with our initials carved into it. I hope she likes it, and let me just go ahead and show you how I did it. So here's my tree bark mold. It's made from Moldstar 16 Fast Platinum Cure silicone rubber. The clay I chose for this project is Chavant NSP Hard. This is a non-sulfur plastiline. Having no sulfur will mean there will be no cure inhibition when I make my silicone mold. Also, with it being a hard consistency, it'll be easier for me to demold, and when I carve into it, it's going to hold that detail really well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to soften or melt that Chavant NSP clay so I can apply it into the mold to get all that detail. I'm going to cut it into smaller pieces. That way it's going to melt more evenly and more quickly. I'll put it in this slow cooker and I'm going to put it on a very low heat. This took me about an hour to an hour and a half for it to fully melt down. Your time may vary. Once I can see the clay is a pourable consistency, I can start slowly moving it into my mold. Now, you can see that there's a lot of detail from that tree bark, so I'm going to use my disposable chip brush and actually brush all of that liquid clay into all that detail. If I just pour it in without doing that, I might get air bubbles or it won't look smooth and even. So by doing this, I ensure thorough coverage and I know I'm going to capture all that detail. I'm moving fairly quickly because once I remove the clay from the heat, it's going to start cooling down. Once it cools, you'll notice it starts to firm up and get harder. Also, the silicone mold is going to absorb some of that heat. Once the surface is completely covered, I'm going to go ahead and continue transferring the clay from the pot into the mold. I'm going to keep doing this until it's filled completely, and I'll just try to smooth it out as much as I can on the surface to make it flat and even. So once I can see that I've covered everything in this mold and it's filled and even, I'm going to let it cool to its initial firmness at room temperature. Once it's fully cooled down, I'm going to demold it. You can see that it captured all of that great texture from that tree bark. Look closely. Every little notch, every little grain is captured. Okay, so while that clay was cooling down, I had time to make a clay block. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to apply some more liquefied or melted material on top so that I can glue that piece of textured bark on top of it. And the reason why is because this is gonna be the total thickness that I want my entire mold to be. I'm just adding a little bit more material on the sides so that the seams are filled in and then it becomes one solid piece. So again, I'm going to let this cool down to its initial firmness so that I can actually use some clay tools to actually scrape the sides, smooth it so that it looks like one homogeneous piece. What I'm doing now is I'm kind of tracing the outline of a heart. I want to pretend like I actually carved some initials in a tree bark. So I'm going to carve the heart out using some sculpting tools, and then I'm going to carve our initials into the tree bark. I can easily carve this NSP hard with clay tools, but it's not so hard that I can't actually get into it. If I do press on the side of it, it won't distort or soften like some of the other clays. This one does hold detail and shape really well. So now that I've got my carving in there, it's time to make the mold. For building the mold box, I'm going to use foam core for 3 sides and acrylic in the front so you can see what I'm doing. Just use a little bit of hot glue and make sure that everything's sealed up properly so nothing leaks out when we mix and pour our mold rubber. The mold material I'm going to use is called SORTA-Clear 37. This is a food-safe mold rubber as long as you process it correctly. There's a link to the food process and technical bulletin in the description below. So I'm going to pre-mix this material before I dispense it. You really want to make sure that you do that so that any material that may have separated over time can be thoroughly incorporated. Then I'm going to pour the material into a container so that they're both equal parts by volume. The mix ratio of the SORTA-Clear 37 is 1 part A to 1 part B by volume. So here we are with our part A and our part B, equal parts by volume. I used our material calculator to help me figure out how much material I would need for my project. It wound up being about 4 pounds or 2 trial kits. We'll leave a link in the description so you can find out how much you'll need for your project. SORTA-Clear 37 has a pot life of 25 minutes. I need to keep this in mind throughout the entire process, from mixing, degassing, and pouring. So now I'm combining my part A and my part B into a single mixing container. I'm going to thoroughly mix it for a few minutes, scraping the sides and scraping the bottoms several times as I'm doing this. Once I have a thorough mix, I'm going to do what we call a double mix and pour. That means I'm going to put it into another clean container and use a clean mixing stick and mix it all over again, scraping the sides and scraping the bottoms again to make sure I get all of the components thoroughly mixed. So before I pour this material into my mold box, I'm going to put it in the vacuum degassing chamber. Due to the higher viscosity of our material, it's recommended that we vacuum degas it in order to help remove any air that was introduced during our mix. I'm using Smooth-On's 2-gallon vacuum chamber and a vacuum pump that pulls 29 inches of mercury. This is going to help eliminate any entrapped air in the material. You're going to see it rise, break, and fall during the process. If you want to learn more about vacuum degassing, we're going to include a link for you. Once I can see that the bubbles have been vacuumed out, I'm going to be able to pour into my mold. Pouring the material in one spot and allowing it to rise and flow around the model is going to help prevent air entrapment and bubbles in our finished mold. You can see why I use the acrylic wall for this video, so you can see the material flow over the model and capture all the detail while reducing air entrapment. Now I'm going to let this cure for 4 hours at room temperature. One of the benefits of SORTA-Clear is that I can see into the mold through this translucent rubber. That can be really beneficial for certain projects. Once the material has cured, I'm going to apply isopropyl alcohol to the hot melt glue to soften it and aid in the demolding of the mold box. Once I remove the mold walls, I'm going to go ahead and demold it. I pried all the edges of the mold to release some of the vacuum, and then I was able to demold it pretty easily. Ooh, that came out so nice and clean, there was barely any clay residue left in the mold. Look how well the mold captured all the detail of the tree bark texture and my carving. So now, in order to make it food safe, I'm going to use some dishwashing detergent and warm water in order to clean it thoroughly. I want to get rid of any clay, of course, but honestly there really wasn't much in there. But I want to make sure it's thoroughly cleaned and dried before I use it for any food-safe application. So now I'm going to take some of these little pieces of chocolate and I'm going to slowly melt them over this induction burner. So I melted just enough chocolate so that I can coat the entire surface and just a little bit on the sides of my Rice Krispie Treat mold. I want the top and just a little bit of the sides to be coated. Once I finished spreading the chocolate evenly in the mold, I went ahead and made my crispy rice treats. I found a recipe online and I added a little bit of pink food coloring just to make it a little more Valentine's Day feeling. While the chocolate is still liquid, I scooped some of this into the mold slowly, and then I pressed firmly to make sure I got all the corners, all the sides, and then I wanted to make sure the entire piece was level. Now I'm going to set my treat aside and allow it to cool before demolding. Once it finished cooling, I was ready to demold. I loosened all the sides first, and then I peeled it back. I am so excited to see how this turns out. Ooh, that looks so nice. This looks great. It really does look like I carved into some tree bark. She's gonna love this. So with this one mold, I was able to make so many different designs. This was the original one that looks the most like the tree bark with our carved initials in it. But for the other ones here, I used different kinds of chocolates with different colors of food coloring. And then I added a little bit of icing to fill in the letters. But honestly, I love them all. I think they look so cute. I don't know which one I'm gonna give to her. That's gonna be the hardest part, but I do think I should try some just to make sure it's gonna be tasting good. I decided to try this extra one that I made, which has dark chocolate on it. It actually tastes really good, and I think she's gonna love it. Even though I use this mold to make Rice Krispie treats, you can use it to create any kind of baked good. Cakes, brownies, chocolates, gummies. Basically anything you can come up with is up to you. This mold is food safe and can be reused over and over again. Remember, if you like this video, please be sure to like and subscribe.